Well, I am just absolutely delighted to announce and to introduce our speaker today, Letha Pugh. I think she can best be described as a serial entrepreneur, and not serial in the way we were talking about it this morning, Letha. Having owned multiple small businesses, including a healthcare consulting firm, a home healthcare agency, and most recently, Bake Me Happy, a gluten-free wholesale bakery and coffee shop that's been open since 2013 and apparently thrived during the pandemic. She balances her small business interests with community involvement. Most specifically, she has served on the board and as president of Stonewall Columbus and as the founding member of Black Out and Proud. I am especially amazed at her creation of Service, a relief effort for hospitality workers displaced from employment at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking this morning on the theme Monumental, please join me in welcoming Letha Pugh. And you're hearing thunderous Zoom applause, Letha.
I hear it. It sounds great. Thank you for having me, Creative Mornings. I think I'm still getting used to people being interested in hearing what I have to say. I'm pretty sure my wife is probably tired of hearing what I have to say, but this morning we're going to talk about monumental moments, small personal moments. I consider the universe coming together. Some people may call it a higher power or a gut feeling, but they're connected to like our personal history. And then there are those times when we participate in what are collective monumental moments, where we contribute to something significant, historical. And I was excited about the theme because it really pulled together my thoughts around, what has helped me become a successful business owner. And there are these very small, what people may consider insignificant interactions or experiences that we've had in shaping, who I have become. And then there are these collective moments where I actually felt the heaviness of being involved in what I would consider to be historical. There's a lot of responsibility with having a successful business. There's a lot of responsibility to the community. There's a lot of responsibility to myself. And I have to reflect back on these monumental moments to just kind of keep me grounded and keep me inspired. Looking back over the years when I've experienced personal monumental moments, they may have been insignificant at the time because I was in the moment and didn't really realize it. But I think the ones that had the most profound impact on me were the ones that people were sharing how they believed in me. They were fulfilling a need I had at the time, building me up to be something successful. That's what I consider messages from the universe, if you're listening. I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I am the oldest daughter of a 14-year-old mother who had two daughters by the time she was 16. And I've pretty much dealt with and experienced anything connected with that. But probably the most memorable issue, I dealt with growing up was poverty. I was raised in the Black community in Omaha. I didn't have a lot of interaction, honestly, with the white community until I started being bused in junior high school or sixth grade out to the suburbs. And I've always been a worker, a hustler, even as young as 10. I used to do odd jobs, things for people around the neighborhood. I'd earn a food stamp. I'd take the food stamp, I'd go buy 10 packs of Now-and-Laters from the corner store or from the candy lady. And then I'd get bussed out to the suburbs. At the time in Nebraska, there were no 7-Elevens, Circle K's, or corner stores. And I'd sell each pack of Now and Laters for $1, an actual dollar. I'd take the $10 home and I'd help buy toilet paper. I'd buy myself school supplies, just whatever was needed. A lot of times I would help buy tokens for laundry. And so I've always had this very entrepreneurial spirit, but also, hey, if I win, you can win. And, the person at the time winning, was my mother. While I've always had the spirit of being an entrepreneur, it was in college that I began to develop like a sense of caring and compassion that I could recognize that I've blended into my business ventures. I ended up going to the University of Nebraska. I had no clue what I was going to major in. I just knew that I wanted a different life than how I'd grown up. And I remember eating dinner with a friend's mom one time and asking her, how do you get a house like this? And they lived in a area of town called Dundee, actually, which is where Warren Buffett lives, but it's a pretty, I could live there now. It's not a super expensive neighborhood. And she said, you have to go to college. And I remember thinking, okay, then that's what I have to do. I didn't have anyone suggesting I go to college at home. I think growing up in poverty households, sometimes the thought is you just get out and you go to work and you earn income. I ended up in Nebraska, which out of about 45,000 students, 3% were people of color. And when I say people of color, I mean Asian people, Native American, Middle Eastern, Black, 3%. And it was interesting because that 3% really, we all were rooting for each other and trying to help each other get through and get through college. We all knew why we were there and how privileged and how much of a privilege it was to be there. But I was lost. I was taking general studies classes, and this is an example of the universe coming together for me. There was one Black career counselor. Her name was Ruby Higgins. She reminded me of my grandmother. She called me into her office one day and she sat me in a chair and she kind of gave me that death stare. And she said, Letha Pugh, what are you going to do? And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I'm here because I think this is the way to a better life, but I need help. And she asked me, what do you like to do? And I'd never had anyone ask me that before. I said, I like taking care of people. And she said, okay, well, you're going to apply to the nursing college. And I said, okay. And at the time, I didn't take classes that started before 10 o'clock. I didn't take classes that, I only took Tuesday, Thursday classes. So I had some cleaning up to do. I think the first time I applied to the nursing college, I didn't get in. I retook a number of classes and reapplied and ended up having a really successful, nursing college career. And it was the best decision of my life. I think that nursing taught me empathy. I think it taught me how to care for people. It even taught me how to set boundaries. I think if I didn't go to nursing school, I probably would have been like a hedge fund type person, where it was just about the money and making more money and, and not all hedge fund people are like that, but there is a caring component and a compassionate piece to everything that I do. And then there was a moment when I graduated and I left and gone to the University of Memphis, and then ended up here at the Med Center. And I would eat lunch. I was over at OSU East, and I was in an area of nursing called nursing informatics. It was computers in nursing, and this was early, like 2004. And I would eat lunch. I was in administration at the time, and I was maybe 20, 26, if I'm even doing the math right, 26 or 27. And so I was young in administration, and a lot of the women there were older and had been there. And, to them, putting in 30, 40 years at OSU that was their goal in life. And I was there and I was bucking the system. I would not go along with, them just adding information on a discharge sheet to meet their quality assurance requirements. I was asking why, and hey, I don't agree with this. And we were eating lunch one day, and one of the women said, "I don't, I don't think you're going to be here for long." And she didn't say it in a way. I never got the feeling like you're going to get fired. It was more, I think you're destined for something bigger than this. You're not going to be boxed in by the corporate bureaucracy. And I see it in you. And I think at that time, I was still pretty young. I didn't see it in myself. And, I've spent a lot of time over the years fostering that in myself. And I think it's been these personal, intimate moments and just these conversations with people that have kind of sparked that. And, I immediately began to look at what is it I want to do, and that kind of started me on the entrepreneurial journey. And I left OSU probably a year after that, and started doing my own thing. Um, these insignificant, or what would be considered insignificant, conversations helped to build me up to who I needed to be to do the work I do in the world today, so that later I could find my voice. And I am appreciative, and I always think about those two interactions. When I meditate, or at times when I feel like, hey, this is really heavy, and I kind of need something to lean on. And then there are those collective monumental moments, where I felt like I've done something, part of history. And in 2017, I think I kind of began to find my voice as a Black LGBTQ woman activist. It started with the protests at Stonewall. It as everyone kind of began to become aware of, you know, uh, the visual image of police brutality in the Black community. I think that was the impetus for me, not to stand against Stonewall, because I was part of the Stonewall, family. I was there and I was doing the work, and I was aware of everything we were doing in the community. But there's also a responsibility, a personal responsibility on my part to speak up, uh, in support of those marginalized in the LGBTQ community. And I almost liken it to a conga line. At the front of the line were, a lot of white gay men and women who were excited about marriage equality, who were excited about, at any given time, civil unions and the increasing civil rights wins that the LGBTQ community was achieving. And then the conga line broke, and the front of the line kept dancing across the floor, and the back of the line were all these marginalized folks who weren't feeling that equity that others were feeling in the LGBTQ community. And if you stripped away the fact that, I've gone to school, or that I've owned businesses, I started nonprofits, what people see when they don't know me is a Black lesbian. And so I felt like I had a personal and collective responsibility to use the soapbox that I had to try to make a difference in the community. And I think that is, I think that was the impetus for that. For me personally, it was like this collective monumental experience that the city had that on a personal level, I really tried to take and uh, do something with it and make a difference. Um, there's another very monumental moment. Um, but before I share that monumental moment, I've had a number of experiences in my life that I think have shaped me to be the person that I am today. Um, the work that I do with the service project, at the beginning of 2020, when everything kind of broke out with the pandemic, you know, not only was I trying to keep my businesses, together and on the right track. And actually, I had two businesses at that time that I was managing. I was also trying to keep my family safe and also trying to understand what is this virus and what is happening, to people in general. I also knew that there were people in the hospitality industry who literally did not have food and no access to money because a dirty little secret in the hospitality industry is that some people pay their staff under the table, which made them ineligible for unemployment. And so, uh, you know, Sang and Matt and I got together, and when I tell you the community stepped up, um, people stepped up in a way that has allowed us to get to the place today where we're opening a cafe on the 16th floor of the county courthouse. The Franklin County Commission has awarded us, the contract for the cafe. They're subsidizing health insurance for folks. We'll start staff at $15 an hour. We'll have wraparound services, mental health services, childcare, transportation, anything. To be honest with you, I kind of didn't want to do the project, so I kept throwing up all these what I would consider obstacles to the project, and the commission kept coming back and saying, "Okay, we'll do it. That's great." And now, I'm excited about it. I've cleared my schedule off in a way that I can be focused on it. But that is this project is kind of a huge dream that I've had to be in a position where I can contribute from an economic development standpoint, as well as uh, putting people to work and providing people the services that they need to be successful. So that's just a little bit about some of the work that I'm doing in the community. I won't bog you down with all of it. Um, but there was another significant moment that I wanted to share with you all. And in 2020, 2020 was just a year, I tell you. Uh, when the protests were going on downtown, I didn't attend the protests downtown. I have this weird energy thing, and when I'm in large crowds like that, and it's a high energy, high emotional type situation, I almost feel like I get really overwhelmed. And so I tend to do a little bit more background work. Um, uh, and in this instance, I spent the day collecting money for people to support the protesters, driving water, cases of water from point to point, um, medical supplies, communicating between folks. And I spent the whole day doing that. And that to me was like very, that was my involvement in, trying to move the needle on racial equality, not just here in the city, but for all people who, are dealing with those injustices. And I remember there was a point at the end of the day when I was heading home, and I had this urge in the car, like I wanted to wail or almost cry, or like the spontaneous emotional outburst. And it was so significant that I pulled my truck over and I let out this wail. Um, it 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 kind of, I was kind of taken aback a bit because it wasn't this sound that came out of me, it almost wasn't for me. It almost was ancestral. It almost was this release of all this pin-up emotional baggage that Black people have carried in this country over all these years. And I remember like thinking, okay, Letha, you've got to get yourself together and drive. And that will always stay with me because for a lot of Black people, what happened in the summer of 2020 was probably the most significant movement of the needle, at least I have felt up to this point in my lifetime. In knowing and having that call and reacting to it, I knew that that wasn't the only thing I would be involved with in this movement. And I'm not going to say it was a monumental moment for Black people, but it was a monumental moment for me personally in this collective moment. And so I've gone on to do quite a bit of background work, legislative work, pulling people together, trying to get laws changed, just whatever I can do to, shed some light on, what needs to change here within our lifetime, or even, in for my daughter's lifetime. We all have personal monumental moments that build us up, where people believe in us and push us. And if we're doing our work, then we get to contribute to these larger historical moments. And we all play our parts as we can. For me, I focus on the equity in my daily life through economic development projects, small business advocacy. And for me, what that looks like is connecting people to resources, answering people's questions, talking to legislators when I have the opportunity to help move. I am a firm believer in economic development will help with racial equity. I believe that specifically in small business. I think that small business, of course, there's more small businesses than there are these Amazons and Googles of the world. And that's where we have the most impact, specifically on our communities. And I put a lot of energy into trying to, move those industrial complexes forward. I think it's important to listen to our guts. I tend to say quite a bit when I talk with folks, the universe, brought all these things together. And I appreciate having that capability. I think it's something that I've honed in and fostered over the last couple of years. I think it is a gift that I have. And I believe that personal and collective monumental moments contribute to my ability to put the pieces together to make something successful. We need to be accountable to our role in history, our role in making communities better. I think consider this your call to action that contributes to the well-being of another person individually, no matter how insignificant you may perceive it to be. You could potentially be changing someone's life or the course of history. And that concludes my spiel on monumental moments. So I think at this point, we'll kind of open it up for questions and answers.
More thunderous, rapturous applause, Letha. Wow, just super. Yes, and you can see all the Zoom hearts and Zoom applause.
Thank you very much.
So yes, definitely time for questions or reactions. As you have these, please go ahead and write them into the chat, and we will We will curate these. Letha, may I begin? I was really curious by something that you said there toward the end of your talk. You said we need to be accountable to our role in history. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
You know, I was never a huge history buff. I not until I've gotten older here that I've been able to put the pieces together around, how important history is and how it kind of guides us, for the future. And um, we all contribute each day, every day, when we get up and go. Our interactions with people, uh, how we handle different situations. Um, that is a part of history, and it is part of your personal history. And then when we have an opportunity to have this collective input, I think people have the responsibility to stand up and take a piece of that. And when I say accountable, follow through, um, follow up, update folks so that there's some awareness in the work that needs to be done to make society better. And I am I am the first to not take on projects now when I don't feel like I can have that level of accountability. And so I've become very selective, and that's only been in the last year. Like 2020 was a beast for people. It took me down to where I spent a year here rebuilding myself up emotionally and mentally and physically feeling better. But I think that's part of my accountability too. If I throw my hat in the ring for something, um, I personally take on. I feel like I have a responsibility to see it through and follow through.
Well, I completely understand what you're saying, Letha. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm a history professor in my day job, so
Oh
I'm very happy.
I didn't mean history was boring or anything.
No, 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 no. No, what I was going to say is maybe you just needed to have the right history professor. But no, that's lovely.
Now, David, did you hear what I said?
I
said
did.
I only took classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I did. So Stacy has asked, when you said that you made space as a business owner to focus on your new project after resisting it, what was that process like?
I think I had a tendency to take on too much and just kind of run myself ragged. And over the last year, I've been working with essentially a business psychologist. And she has been able to help me formulate what are these important buckets in your life. And in those buckets, when people come at you, because everyone's coming at you for something, I needed to be in a place where I could make a decision about what I took on, what I said no to, excuse me. And I was struggling with that. I was saying yes to everything because I felt like I had the responsibility to do that, when really my responsibility is to only take on what I can handle. And so the first step in that is talking with my wife about, I always start out like, this could potentially come to life, and how that will impact our family life, and what in my community and professional life do I need to extract from. And so kind of doing this dance between, okay, I was on the executive committee for this board for a significant period of time. That term is coming to an end. I should not run again. I should pull back so I have less responsibilities there, because knowing I'm going to have more responsibilities here. That is kind of how I've learned to manage all the things that I do. I sold a home care agency, but I was also working there and was starting to plan my exit. And so I kind of moved the timeline up on that. And so that's kind of how I manage taking on new projects. And right now I'm like on a hiatus, no boards, no new projects, but service is something that I've been intimately involved with since the beginning. When we started service, we were all pilfering from the businesses that we had. Um, I was going over to Bake Me Happy and taking things. I'd be walking by with a bucket of things, and Wendy's like, "Hey, where you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I got this. We need this for the people." And it really was a grassroots. What can we do with the resources we have? I built a pre-order system because we were just trying to keep folks safe when they would pick up the food. We did about 10,000 meals in 8 weeks. And
Gosh.
so we had a pre-order system where you would choose the location, choose your pickup slot. I took some data server space that Bake Me Happy had and just kind of reorganized it for service. And we used that. And then once it was done, I moved it back over to Bake Me Happy. So this really has been a project that, I've kind of babied along here. And now we're in $1 million contract with the city to, I guess, we're trying to make cafeteria food cool, so that's kind of the goal with it.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
That would be an invention right up there with penicillin if you could manage that.
We've got some all-stars in there. It's gonna be amazing. So I'm looking forward to it.
So our group is Creative Mornings,
Mhm.
and I'm curious to know: do you think of yourself as creative? And if so, what does that mean to you? If I say the word creative, what does that mean to you?
When I hear creative, I tend to think of words. If someone presents a word to me, I tend to think of another word that and I think of like scrappy, uh, uh, resourceful, using the tools that you have. I would say yes. And that, I don't think I started out, like Wendy is an artist. And Wendy does all the baking at Bake Me Happy, all the product development. And I've learned that what she does in the bakery is an extension of her creativeness. I don't think I thought of myself as creative initially, but now I think the way that I'm able to master all of the uh, projects that I have, uh, I am kind of creative in the way that I do it and not be burned out by it. I would say, yes, I am creative.
Thank you for that.
I also have had just had a cup of coffee here. So you guys are getting me like, I am chatty. So.
Well, and of course we take an expansive definition of what is creative. And so we're happy for your contribution. So Janice, and I agree with Janice here, says, I think it's admirable that you advocate for the raising of workers' wages. How did you navigate that? Most small business owners I've worked for always struggled with laws that raise minimum wage. How did you navigate this process?
That is a great question, Janice, because we just were. So I am part of the Ohio Restaurant Association. So they deal with owners. Here I have this nonprofit that really is trying to make space for workers and workers' rights in the restaurant industry. And I almost liken it to the relationship I had with Stonewall, where I was involved with Stonewall and I was doing the work with Stonewall, but there were some things that could be done better at Stonewall. I do believe that you have to pay people. First off, personally, you need to pay people something you're not ashamed to tell people that you're paying them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we decided with the service project that everyone was going to start, all of the participants in the program, because the program isn't just working in the cafeteria. We provide transportation, childcare services, free health insurance. I mean, it is a comprehensive training program to make people successful. And so when we decided to pay people $15 an hour, we got a lot of pushback, not from Franklin County commissioners, but from other restaurant industry folks who were saying, well, if you pay people 15 to work, what is your incentive for your management staff when they are only making, $10 to $15 more than the people they're supervising? And I, as a group, Sang and Matt and I had to really think about what is it that we want to accomplish from this. It is not to underpay administrative staff, but can we build an environment where people are paid wages and collectively they get the work done together? Every day when you go into a shift, it is not, I'm telling someone who makes $5 less than me what to do. I'm not taking that on. It is, I am making $20 an hour. So we have kitchen leads, assistant kitchen manager, general manager, and they all make more than $15 an hour. But we needed to hire people where that wasn't the impetus behind the position. The focus behind you coming in and being part of the management team is that this is a program or a project that is going to have such an impact in the community. And so it is not easy, because I even had to go back and look at, what I pay people at Bake Me Happy, to make sure I was doing the right thing. The difference is, I think a lot of times in the restaurant industry, when there's really small businesses, either the owners aren't paying themselves at all already, or they are paying themselves, and they're paying themselves probably too much, so much so that they're not able to pay their staff a good wage. And don't get me wrong, not everyone, but on the other hand, people need to understand, if you pay your staff $15 an hour, you're really paying $18 an hour as an owner because of the payroll tax match. And so you've got to have a handle on your cost of goods sold. You've got to have a handle on your frivolous overhead costs. And if you strip all that out, I think the potential is there. Now, I am taking up with legislators right now, and I know this is probably not something that will pass, but I'm feeling pretty adamant about it. I don't think restaurant owners should be taxed on tips. I don't think tips are part of our budget. I don't think it should be counted toward unemployment. I don't have control over when someone comes in and tips the staff $100. So, I think there are some things in the restaurant industry that really need to be cleaned up. And one of those is how we pay our staff and how we treat our staff.
Letha, how about I ask you one more sort of final question? This comes from Sylvia, who appreciates, as I do, your candor and transparency. She says, I'm wondering if you can tell us how you gained the confidence to share your ideas, even when others may not necessarily agree or give resistance. It's another good question.
It is. I think I've learned about myself. If I share, not everyone's going to be okay with what I share. And as long as I'm okay with that, I really try to come to a place of fairness, and what is for the greater good. And I think that's why I struggle with politics, because
Hmm.
I know there's a game to it, but I also know that, people need a voice. And it's taken me a while it's interesting. And this is one of those instances, I think, where the universe is coming together. I have been working with some PR folks, and it is not anything I've ever thought I would do, but I want to, I believe I have something to say that is beneficial to folks. Take from it what you can. Some of it, it's not going to be helpful to you, but if we all kind of come to a conversation with the idea that, people are human, people make mistakes, people change, what would be helpful to people, giving people information. That thinking about all those things has made it easier for me to share my thoughts and ideas.
Well,
If
thank you
that
for that,
made
Leith.
any sense at all.
No, no, it absolutely does. And I love watching you think through these answers. Your process just absolutely fascinates me. Brian reminds us that, and Brian, I hadn't thought of this either. All three co-founders of Service have spoken here at Creative Mornings now.
Yes, I met with Matt yesterday for lunch, and he was trying to give me some tips. And then Sang texted me last night, and she was, telling me good luck and have fun. Matt was saying, just have fun. It's a good group, so
Well, good, and I hope you did have fun, because I think we most certainly did. So, thank you again, Letha, for that inspiration and for your service.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate you listening and kind of helping me along my path of public speaking and getting this all worked out.